Imagine a battlefield in the Middle Ages, armies clashing, swords glinting, armor clanging, thousands of weapons, all carefully forged, not by a handful of blacksmiths hammering away in lonely forges, but by vast systems of production. Behind every soldier's blade and every archer's arrow stood the foundry, a proto-industrial hub where weapons were produced on a scale large enough to change the course of history. So here's the question. Foundries. How did they mass-produce weapons? Let's find out together, right here, on History of Simple Things. Before the rise of large foundries, weapons were made in modest hearths and small workshops. Early societies cast bronze and copper into simple molds, each blade or spearhead requiring immense effort. At this stage, production was slow, and armies were limited by what local artisans could provide. But as kingdoms expanded, so did their appetite for arms. The idea of centralizing resources and labor into one powerful hub, the foundry, was born out of necessity. A foundry was more than a forge. It was the ancestor of the modern factory. These sites gathered skilled workers, specialized tools, and giant furnaces. Instead of relying on a single blacksmith, entire teams worked side by side. Furnaces were built to reach temperatures high enough to melt ore in large volumes, creating rivers of molten metal ready to be shaped. Suddenly, production wasn't about crafting one sword at a time. It was about producing dozens, even hundreds, in organized batches. One of the great innovations that made mass production possible was the mold. While hand-forged weapons could vary in shape and size, casting weapons in molds created near-identical copies. Sand, clay, and later reusable metal molds allowed foundries to pour molten metal into prepared shapes, producing arrowheads, spear tips, and sword blanks with remarkable speed. Uniformity meant not only efficiency, but also military discipline. An army armed with standardized gear was stronger and easier to supply. Running a foundry wasn't just about melting metal. It required complex logistics. Ore had to be mined and transported. Charcoal had to be produced in enormous quantities, and water was often used to power bellows or trip hammers. Coordinating these resources turned foundries into vast networks of labor and supply. Without this backbone of organization, large-scale production would have been impossible. Perhaps the most striking evidence of mass weapon production comes from ancient China. During the Warring States period, Chinese foundries produced bronze weapons by the thousands. Archaeological discoveries reveal assembly-style layouts, with molds for crossbow triggers, arrowheads, and sword parts lined up for casting. These weren't random creations. They were standardized, interchangeable parts, allowing armies to repair weapons quickly on the battlefield. China's foundries functioned like military-industrial complexes centuries before the term existed. The Romans took weapon production to another level with their mastery of iron. Roman foundries processed ore in bloomery furnaces, hammering out spongy lumps of metal into durable blades and armor. What set them apart was consistency. Roman legions marched with nearly identical swords, helmets, and shields, all produced in centralized workshops. This system ensured that replacements could be supplied without delay, keeping armies battle-ready over long campaigns. By the Middle Ages, technology gave foundries even greater power. Water wheels drove giant bellows that forced air into furnaces, achieving hotter, more efficient burns. Water-powered trip hammers automated part of the forging process, striking heated iron repeatedly with a force no human arm could match. Foundries now combined human skill with mechanical power, dramatically increasing output and speeding up the shaping of weapons. Inside a foundry, labor was divided into roles that resembled an early assembly line. Smelters tended furnaces, molders shaped casts, hammermen forged edges, and finishers sharpened and polished the blades. Apprentices trained under masters, ensuring a steady flow of skilled workers. This specialization mirrored the very armies they supplied: disciplined, coordinated, and efficient. Though foundries also made tools, plows, and building materials, war transformed them into weapon factories. When armies needed to be raised, agricultural tools gave way to arrowheads and swords. Rulers invested heavily in foundries because military survival depended on them. A fully active foundry could tip the balance of power between rivals, providing not just weapons, but the ability to sustain warfare over years. Beyond Europe and China, other civilizations used foundries to achieve remarkable feats. In India, foundries produced wootz steel, the foundation of Damascus blades prized across the Middle East. Islamic foundries manufactured armor, swords, and projectiles for expanding empires, blending artistry with efficiency. These centers showed that the principle of large-scale weapon production was universal wherever metallurgy advanced. Excavations of ancient and medieval foundries reveal their staggering output. Piles of discarded molds, rows of furnaces, and caches of identical weapons speak to production levels unimaginable in small forges. Some sites have yielded thousands of arrowheads in one location, evidence of workshops operating like production lines centuries before the Industrial Revolution. They were the silent engines of war, shaping the outcome of battles long before gunpowder or factories. Every sword swung on the battlefield, every arrow loosed in combat, was the product of a vast, coordinated system of fire and metal. Without foundries, the empires of history may never have risen to power. When you think of armies marching into battle, remember, the real victory began not on the field, but in the blazing heart of the foundry. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. If you enjoyed this video, please check out our other bingeable channels. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.